When I moved to the UK to do my PhD, my kids were 7 and 8 at the time. Before I moved, I searched the internet high and low for information about what to prepare and how to prepare to move with kids as a student. And I barely found anything. In fact, there was one Kenyan lady who had moved, I think, to Scotland or something like that with her child by herself. And I binged that woman's YouTube, and I probably even emailed her. That's how desperate I was for information on how to prepare. There must be other people like me who are moving abroad with their children and also by themselves. That's why I'm making this video. So it's not just for people who are moving by themselves, it's for people who are moving as students with children, but there are also some specificities for those who are moving by themselves without a partner or someone else to look out for the kids. All right, let's get into it. First things first, at the time of making this video in August 2026, you can only move to the UK with your children if you are studying a master's by research or a PhD. So I'm making this video assuming you've already decided to move, you've worked out the visa applications, and now you're just getting yourself ready to get those flights and move out of the country, wherever it is you are. My visa came out fast. My children's visas took another maybe 4 weeks, which was painstakingly long for me at that time because all I was waiting for to leave was the children's visas. That took quite a while. I was writing emails. That's a whole other story about applying for visas with dependents. But finally, when the visas came, I left with my kids at the same time. Now, that's the biggest first point. Do you want to leave the country with the children on the first day, or do you want to go to England or Scotland or wherever you're going to the UK by yourself, settle in for the first 2-3 weeks, and then have the kids come? So I did it the other way. It was just me and my children, packed our bags, and we all left. Luckily for us, we were going to live with a family member for that initial period. It was 2 weeks in total. But had I had the chance to rethink this, I probably would have done it the other way around. Like I would have gone, set up the housing, schooling, and then have the kids come to me. It probably works out better. But that's a decision you need to make for yourself. And I think either way it can work. But knowing what I do now, based on what I did and some of the challenges I had, I would say maybe consider leaving the kids and then going without them first. But you also now need to prepare the monies that you'll use to settle into the UK. After paying all the NHS, your visa fees, you've booked the tickets, you need to now set aside money for the first, I would say, 2 months. If you're on a scholarship, your scholarship money won't kick in until, I believe, maybe the 1st of October, or is it the end of September, whenever it is your semester starts, that's when your money will come. So you can't rely on that money. Also, there are people who don't have scholarships and are moving and are paying fees and tuition. In that case, you need to have money for I'd say for the first 2 months. So you just need to have a buffer of money available for whatever may come up. I mean, I'll give an example. When I left, I packed all my million suitcases, and I don't know why I didn't think about this, but I just assumed I'd get to the airport and I'd find a normal taxi, a reasonably priced taxi. In the end, I ended up having a minivan because I had 8 bags or 9 bags or something like that. You know how the airline gives you 3 bags each? I maximized all the luggage and then ended up paying maybe £180 just for that taxi ride. And I don't think it was an hour, which was unreasonably high. If I had thought about this better, I certainly would not have packed as much as I did so that I wouldn't have to spend too much on that. I was okay to pay it because also I didn't have a very good sense of, I knew at the exchange rate, but I just didn't have, you don't have a real understanding of the value of the pound until you're living in the country and you're counting, you're paying for your things with a pound. That's when you realize, wait, that £170 I paid for a taxi could have done my food shopping for 2 or 3 weeks. Then okay, it's not adding up. But that's a whole other video about what to pack, what I packed that was useless in the end that you shouldn't bother packing. Maybe I'll make a video about that if it's useful for anyone. Please let me know. But the point is, you need more money than you think you need to tidy you over between when you land and when you start earning money. Whichever way it is, you'll be earning money. I was expecting a scholarship stipend. You might have money set up to come to you every month, or whichever way you're earning money, just have enough money put aside for the move. And then accommodation, how do you get the house? How do you confirm your housing for you and your children? So there are a couple of things to think about. Do you want to be proximal to your school, or do you want to be proximal to where the children are going to go to school? Now, one thing comes after another. When you figure out where you're going to live, then you can figure out where they're going to go to school, because in England, the schools are allocated per where you live. I would advise being closer to where the kids are going to go to school, but if you're lucky and can somehow strike a balance in the distance, like find a middle ground, then that's of course better. But being closer to the children's school is better for you, because when you start your day in the morning, the first thing you're doing is taking the kids to school. If you can get that done as early as possible and then they're settled in, then you can always find your way to get to school. If you need to take a cab, fine. If there's a bus schedule that works for you to go to your school, a train, whatever it is, I feel like prioritizing the children's school in proximity to your home is better than looking at being closest to your school. With the accommodation, it might work out better that when you first land, you have somewhere to live with the children. So I was staying with an aunt, and I was able to, I think on 1 or 2 occasions, leave her with the children while I went out looking for houses with my friends. So it was very convenient for me to be able to do it like that. But if you don't have family or relatives, again, you might want to think about maybe coming first to the UK and then bringing the children after 3 or 4 weeks once you've settled in. There's no harm in that, and I think you can actually get more things done quicker if you don't have the kids in those first weeks. Now, for finding houses, there's a couple of websites you can look at. There's Zoopla, there's Rightmove. You can look a lot while you're still in your country, but you need to be in country to confirm a lease. They'll do virtual viewings for you, but they won't let you sign anything until you've seen the house. So there's that requirement. So for me, I was lucky that my friend had been looking at houses long before I came. So by the time I came, there were a couple of houses that we had zoned in on. So it was just a matter of going there and seeing those final houses and making the decision and confirming and signing everything. So the house hunting thing is probably another video on its own, and I know people have talked about this, but from my own experience, it helped that I had seen the houses virtually online. Like I had looked at them and I had looked at the schools around the houses. So the big thing with the house is to look at the schools around the houses you're looking at, not just if there's a school, but the ratings of the schools. So England rates the schools outstanding, good, and I can't remember what the other one is, but it's not the one you want. You're definitely looking for like a house that has schools around it that are outstanding or good. So for me, I was lucky that I had found a house that had good schools around it. So I locked in on that house, and that's actually the only house I saw. I just decided that was it. The schools that I had seen, one was 5 minutes and the other was 7 minutes from where we lived. So now once you work out where you want to live, the next important thing is where the children will go to school. The application for the schools will be what they call an in-year application, meaning that they would have already reserved slots for the classes in those schools and you're applying in the middle of the year. So I know that doesn't make sense because the school's term hasn't started, but by the time they close off one academic year, they already know the students that are going to be in that one. So if you're applying outside of that year, you're going to do an in-year application. Depending on where you live for your council, you'll find an in-year application online. You fill that form, you submit it to your council, and then you wait. Now for me, I was really trying to get ahead of myself. So I actually submitted for in two councils for the 2 houses I thought I had options for. And in the end, the house that I chose, that's where then I decided to put in a proper application and call the council and say, I've put in my application, I have 2 children, I'd like them to start school as soon as possible. Now, I had gone when that term had started, like the academic year had started. So ours was a proper in-year application. Now, they'll tell you that applications are done through the council, but I also found that visiting the schools and speaking to the head of school and confirming if they had slots for your kids also helped. So by the time you're reaching out to the council, you know that, oh, by the way, the school near here has a place in year 5. You have to be in a position to advocate and push a bit for this. Like there's a process and the council will allocate you a school when they find a slot, but it doesn't hurt for you to advocate for your child. Now for me, I visited 2 schools because I wanted to get a sense of what the kids are like, what the school environment is like, the classrooms, the teachers, the compound. And the nice thing is that they let you do a visit when class is ongoing, so you can peep in and see how the teacher is teaching. Also, you can observe playtime in the playground, and it's a nice experience. I got a good vibe from both, from the head teachers who showed me around. But one school was significantly less diverse, and I mean it was all white in 2 of the classes, and so I was less drawn to that school. I wanted the transition for my children to be as smooth as possible. I didn't want them to come from an African country to a purely white class, so I chose the other school firstly because of that, but also because I got a sense that they were more relaxed than the other school I visited. Anyway, so I chose a school based on the visits that I made, but also I was lucky that the council allocated me places in those schools. But even before the council allocated me places, in the school that we ended up going to, the head teacher told me, we've got slots in this class and that class, and they actually asked for my children's paperwork. So it was almost like there was a parallel system, like the council was working on it, but I was also working on it with the school. So I'd advise that visit the schools, even if they tell you apply purely through the council, it helps. So there's another thing I just remembered. When you're applying, you need to be able to prove that the children are in country when you're applying for the schools. So this might become a bit tricky if you decide to leave the kids there, if you decide to leave the kids and come by yourself, but it's still worth it, because once you come and you spend that first week or two looking for the house, whether you have a friend or someone helping you or a family member or not, or you're just doing this by yourself, once you have the house, then getting the school is almost automated. So I think it's still worth it to come, find the house, look at the schools, confirm to them that you're interested, and then have the kids come over and then take all the passports. That's what I had to do in my case, to just prove that the children are in country. I just want to talk about the paperwork side of moving with your kids by yourself. So there'll be a lot of incidences where you'll be asked to fill forms and give consent for certain things, but like during the course of the year, whether it's to do with medical decisions or decisions about school, and someone may ask, do you have legal custody or do you have full parental rights for your child? Now, if you're applying for the visa, you probably have had to submit a sole custody order if you're a single parent. And that's kind of, I believe that's the conditionality for getting that visa. Or you need some kind of consent letter from the father, or you just need to prove, like, if the father is deceased. The UK is keen on both parental rights, and they want to ensure that if you're moving your children to this country by yourself, the other parent consents or is not in position to contest whatever decisions you make while you're there. So all that paperwork and the final court order, you will need to have that. Birth certificates, of course, the originals, baptism cards, all the medical records for your children, whatever records you have that pertain to your children and you being their parent, and any proof that you've been their full-time parent for all this time, carry that to the UK with you, because there'll be incidences where you'll be asked for those documents depending on what kind of applications you're making. While I've covered major logistics like accommodation and getting schools for your kids and all the finance stuff, I think it's important to just take a moment to say that all of this is doable, and it's also doable with relative ease, especially if you set up like systems in place to be able to keep yourself sane. And I think there's much more to the story than just like finding the schools and finding the house. I think the bigger part is settling yourself into school while simultaneously settling your children into a life there, and importantly their schooling, because remember, school is a huge part of a child's life. I want to share about hacks and routines that I leaned into to keep my sanity, but I'd like that to be more targeted to what people actually need to know. So if there is questions that you've had, whether you're single or you're partnered up and you're moving with your kids and you're a student, please just leave them in the comments. I'll answer them there. Or if I need to, I'll do a whole video about this. My sense is that it will be useful to do some kind of deep dive on the settling into school for yourself, at the same time settling your kids into school. Thank you for watching, and if you're only just finding me and you're curious about my journey, I've made a video about going back to school at a later stage. I'll leave it here for you to watch.